Yo, what is up, everybody? Chris here from Esports News X Rotation. However, the flipping yummy on these interwebs, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys a quick recap of what happened during week 2 of stage 1 of the CDL, that of course being our second week of the CDL 2026 season. Now, this week was an absolute banger. We had some great matches on deck, a lot of things developed, the plot thickened, and roster mania has already somewhat started, and we're just in the Christmas break. Now, before I get into everything, I do want to say that first things first, RIP to Legend, right? Like, my dude already got kicked from the Vancouver Surge, and they've only played 3 matches, I believe. One, two, how many they play week 1? 3. They played 3 matches. So, yeah, that's tough. Legend's already been dropped. He was in the free agent or in the pro chat, the pro scrim chat, talking about he's a free agent. So, yeah, that's tough. So let's get into what actually happened during last week's matches. And we kick things off, of course, with the Riyadh Falcons taking on the Carolina Royal Ravens. You guys can see I put a little bit too much faith in Craze and Nero. I thought it would go to a game 5, but the Riyadh Falcons absolutely flatlined these guys. Let's see what happened. So looking at the series, we had a 250 to 166 on Colossus in favor of the Riyadh Falcons started out. Let's look at the actual series box score, though. So on the Riyadh Falcons side, you had who but Mr. King Cobra himself, Celium, going crazy 65 and 42. And then on the Raven side, everybody went negative. The best performer, of course, was Nero, who had 56. Cell match MVP, not surprising at all. Map 1, Colossus, 250, 166. Super blowout, Cell 33 and 19. Kiz 27 21. And then everybody other than Nero, who had 29 and 30, was just getting tucked. Map 2, Scar S&D 6-2. Yeah, they need some leg room. 10 and 4 from Cell, 6 and 3 from X, 9 and 4 from Pred. Yeah, and then Map 3 Exposure 4-2. Yeah, so that's how they got it done. As you guys can see, Cell 22 and 19, X and 30 and 22. They put the series in the bag, told Carolina fries in the bag, and that's how they got it done. So next series we had the Boston Breeze taking on G2 Minnesota. This one was a really fun one. I really enjoyed this series. Yeah, this one, honestly, it went down to the wire as all G2 series seemed to, but let's get into it because it was a really interesting one for a lot of reasons. Now, looking at the box score, of course, Estriel had a uncharacteristically bad series, dropped to .84. Kremp had a 1.04, and then everybody else on the team was negative. And then on the Boston Breach side, you of course had Nasty having a career performance, 1.23, and then Snoop having a typical Snoopy performance with 1.33. And of course, Snoop was a match MVP. Looking at the map 1, Colossus 250 to 247 was the score line. As you guys can see, I'm probably playing the highlights in the background. It was an absolute banger. If you missed it, I of course have highlights of this and every other matches played this weekend on the channel. Be sure to go show that some love if you haven't checked out any of the highlights here. Now on the map 1, of course, this went the way of G2, behind who else but their new pickup Mamba, dropping 36 and 32, having the standout KD and the most kills in the lobby. And then on the Boston Breach side, the person who was right there with him trying to match was Snoopy with 34 and 30, and then Nasty 29 and 29 is the, I want to say, standout or leading performers. So those are the standout performers on the Boston side, and then on G2 everybody went green, so green light says go, and you win the map. Now, map 2, Raid S&D went 6-1 in favor of Minnesota. They, of course, had a strong performance from who else but Kremp, and then, of course, the man I was just talking about a second ago, Mamba, who was 8 and 2, Kremp, of course, 9 and 3, and then on the Boston Breach side, everybody negative. The lone standout was Snoopy, who was 5 and 6, so not a lot there, 6-1. They need some leg room. Map 3, of course, this went the way of the Boston Breach. This is where they started the reverse sweep, pulled out those brooms, and started riding away with it like some little witches. So Snoopy went 37 and 16. He went absolutely nuclear, and he was like, you know what, guys, we got to really, really turn this around. This is not a joke. These guys are actually winning, and what's going on? Purge 30 and 23. So when your SMGs are doing that much, you have a good shot. Map 4, speaking of good shots, you know who had a good shot on this map? Nasty, 35 and 23. Cammy, his AR duo, 29-25. and then Purge, of course, their backup SMG, their, I guess, opening entry SMG was 28 and 23. So great showing from them. And then in the game 5, Den S&D, we got a 10 and 8 bomb from Estriel, and then on the Boston Breach side, you of course had Nasty going 11 and 4 for the dub, and then you had Snoopy right there with him, 10 and 6 to support. So that's how the Boston Breach got the reverse sweep over a very, very, very good G2 Minnesota team, must be said. And let's move on to the next series where we had the Toronto Koi taking on the Vancouver Surge. Now this one I'm going to very quickly summarize just because this was a series that ended up getting Legend dropped. So yeah, pain. And there's no point in going too deep into a 3-0, right? Especially when Joe Deceives dropping a 1.64. MVP, of course, Joe Deceives, the man dropped a 1.64 on the series. Then map 1 was a Colossus HP that went 250 to 111 in favor of the Toronto Koi boys. Not a lot to take away from this. I mean, you had Joe going 34 and 19, Kleenex 27 and 20, Real 25 and 20, and Insight 22 and 19. Then game 2 went to around 11. Of course, the Vancouver Surge looked actually pretty pretty serviceable on this S&D. A lot of people in the comments were talking about how bad this team was when I posted the highlights and shorts and things, and that kind of made me laugh. But I was like, no, they look okay in S&D. Like, they've pushed a couple around 11. So Surge, their S&D looks okay, but obviously they dropped Legend, and who knows who they're picking up. There's one guy who we all think they should pick up. Yeah, I mean, if you know, you know. And yeah, so looking at this map, Abe was 10 and 7, Gordon was 11 and 6, and then on the other side, Kleenex 9 and 8, Joe 8 and 8, and Real 9 and 8. But this was a fun S&D, and it was way closer than I would have expected to be. Now, the map 3 overload went the way of Koi, the Den overload, of course. Koi are looking to be one of the best overload teams in this game, so this is not insane in retrospect. After the Faze series, especially, Joe Deceives 32 and 18, Kleenex 28 and 17, and then Insight 22 and 18, along with Real 23 and 21, excuse me. So pretty easy dub for the Toronto Koi boys. Now, speaking of an easy dub, we had the Battle of LA, the Not Like Us Bowl, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, this one surprisingly was a 3-0 for Dan Ghosty and the Paris Gentlemates. Let's see what happened. So, Dan Ghosty hit a blanker in this series. He had a 2.14, 75 and 35. This is actually one of the best KDs that we've seen in a very long time in any series in Pro COD. Considering the competition, this is actually insane that Ghosty went this nuclear, but it is his old team to be fair. So, there's that. So looking at it, Ghosty, of course, had to be the series. Oh my god, a 2.92 hardpoint KD? Nah, that's insane. So looking at the series, of course, we did that. Looking at the map 1, Dan dropped a 2.92 in hardpoint. This has to be some sort of record. I mean, I just don't remember seeing, like, insane stat lines like this in hardpoint. Plus 25? Wow. 38 and 13. I mean, the only person on the other team who was even close to positive was Scrap, 28 and 24. Go next. Exposure map 2, S&D. 6-3 in favor of the Paris Gentlemates behind who but Sib, of course, and Ghosty, the AR duo. Sib 12 and 3, Ghosty 7 and 4. And then on the LA Thieves side, literally no one got above 5 kills. BZ 4 and 8, Hydra 5 and 8, Kenny 4 and 7, and Scrap 5 and 8. So they all got fried. And then Den Overload map 3. I mean, wow. Yeah, this was just a series. Ghosty 30 and 18, Envoy 31 and 24, Neptune 26 and 23, and Sib 33 and 21. That belt was very active. On the LA Thieves side, Kenny was 13 and 31, Scrap 27 and 29, Hydra 24 and 30, and Abizi 22 and 30. So, I don't know. I don't know what the problem was in that series, but there were quite a few. Speaking of series with quite a few problems, let's look at the Optic Texas versus Miami Heretics. I mean, what is this, a grudge match? A rivalry match? Crazy match? All the above. So let's look at it. The series leader, of course, was who else but Mr. Mercules, the savior of Optic. 104 kills and 80 deaths, 1.3 KD. And on the other side, of course, Rencor had a 1.3 KD as well. He was 105 and 81. And then Super, his AR duo, had a 1.06. Dashy backed up Mercules with a 1.15. Shout out to the Zombies comp. And then, yeah, match MVP, Mercules, no surprise there. Look at the map one. This was a surprising one. It went 250 to 188 in favor of Miami. They opened it with a absolute blinkerton. Mercules went even, but everybody else on Optic went negative. Now the Miami Heretics side, you have Rancor going absolutely ballistic with a 1.89 going 36-19, and Super going 30-19 to back him up, and Metals also going positive with a 23-21 scoreline. Map 2, Scar S&D went 6-4 in favor of the Green Wall, behind a 10-6 performance from Mercules and a 9-7 from Shotzi. Those two were just dancing on them. They absolutely did their thing, and yeah, that's the difference maker there, right? Rancor was 8-7, but his kills, like, in consequence, were not really important. They just came at, different times where it was like, oh, end of the round type. So, yeah. In the map 3 overload on Scar, the scoreline looks closer than it actually was in all actuality. Optic had like a 4-1 lead, and I believe Miami was able to get a couple of close scores in the second half. But yeah, it was never really that close. Dashy 27-20, Hoop 26-25, and Merc 33-23 absolutely blew them away. And then Rancor on the other side with a 1.04, 28-27. He was the only one who looked pretty decent in their performance. Map 4, Den HP. Of course, who else but Rancor and Metals went absolutely nuclear, the two longest standing members of this Heretics roster, which sounds weird to say, but of course Rancor was brought in to start last year, and then Metals has just been on Heretics since Black Ops 4. So, yeah, those two went nuts, and that's how they forced a game 5. This was an insane map for Dashy, dropped 29-22 for the L. Then Merc was right there with him, 28-25 for the L. Shotzi 17-33 for the L is tough. Then the game 5, of course, Shotzi redeemed himself, 8-5 for the dub. And then Merc was 12-5, so he just went absolutely takeover mode. Dashy 7-6. Hoop 2-9 is tough. And then on the other side, Miami Heretics, of course, you had Trakes doing his absolute best, the rookie. He went 9-7, and then Rancor was 7-6. So that's how this series went down to the wire. Absolute cinema. If you missed it, please go check out the highlights. It was a banger. Probably the best match of the weekend, if we're being honest. And then, yeah, another match happened after that, and it was one of the matches of all time. Cloud9 New York taking on the Vancouver Surge. It was a super DoorDash. Yeah, this is a DoorDash boost. Whatever the DoorDashing you can pay for is that gets your food to you faster, priority, whatever it's called. This was that. So looking at it, in our 1 through 3, we of course had Afro as a standout with the 1.15 zombies themed KD. Now on the other side, you had three guys in the green. You had Abe with the 1.05, 66 and 33, Gwen with the 1.13, 77 and 68, and Lunars with the 1.15, 60 and 52. So this Surge team, now that Legend has been dropped, it could only go up, right? Like, Legend's dropping 5,000 damage, everybody else dropping 9,000 in the series. I mean, this team is not bad. The other three looked pretty good through everything we've seen so far. So making this change so early is probably going to bode pretty well for them. Afro, like I said, series MVP. Then let's look at the maps. Map 1 was a 10-point game, went 250 to 240 in favor of course, Cloud9. And Gwen dropped 42 for the L, 42 and 33. And then Lunars, his AR duo, was right there with him, 34 and 26. And then you had Legend 21 and 30, and Abe almost positive 32 and 33. So Abe, Gwen, and Lunars all look great, but Legend was just holding them very far back. Then on the Cloud9 New York side, you had Afro popping off 34 and 29, Beans slightly negative 33 and 34. Excuse me. Mac 28 and 33, and then Vivid 27 and 33. In the map 2 on Den S&D, you of course had all the Surge boys except for Lunars going negative. Lunars was 9-6. He had an amazing ace on that. I'll probably be playing that as the highlight clip. And then of course Beans went 10-4, and Mac went 10-5. And then Vivid of course complimented them with a 7-5 scoreline for the dub. In the map 3, Scar Overload, it went 3-2 in favor of the Cloud9 boys. They made an insane comeback. They were down 2 most of the game, and then they brought it back to absolutely sink the hopes of this Vancouver Surge team. Not even a map in 9 maps played. So yeah, Legend getting dropped after this makes a lot more sense, right? He was 15 and 23, Lou was 17 and 20, and then Gwen was 32 and 26, and Abe was 28 and 21. And Gwen tweeted something after the series. He was like, just demoralized. So, yeah, Legend getting dropped makes a lot of sense, sadly. Afro was 25 and 19, and Mac went even 24 and 24. So, that's how the Vancouver Surge played their last series of the split. Speaking of last series of the split, we had the last two green teams to play in 2025, being the Boston Breach and Riyadh Falcons. I thought this would be a Game 5 barn burner, but the Falcons burned the barn at the last second. They said it's a fire sale in the Game 4, and they took everything with them and dipped. So looking at the series, of course, the King Cobra himself, Mr. Celium, was the match MVP with 97 and 70 on the series and 11,000 damage. Exon, of course, at 88 and 84. He was a super damage dealer. Kismet 95 and 94. And then, of course, on the other side, you had Snoopy as the lone standout with a 1.06. Now, looking at the map one, this was 250 to 230. This was an absolute banger of a hard point. You had Cell going 32 and 24, and Kismet going 30 and 29 for the L. Then on the other side, you, of course, had Nasty going 27 and 27. Kemi going 29 and 31, and Snoopy going 32 and 27 for the dub. They were going absolutely nuts. They overperformed so many different times, and it was a great one. If you missed the highlights, go check that one out. Skip the map too, because it was a 6-1 in favor of the Riyadh Falcons. They needed some leg room, as Drake so eloquently said. And Selling went 6 and 2, Kizit went 8 and 4, and Pred went 7 and 4, and then yeah, the Boston Breach went next. Nasty 6 and 6 was the lone person to do decent. Map 3, Exposure Overload, went the way of the Falcons, of course, and Celium was 27 and 16, Kismet 23 and 26, Pred 22 and 18. And on the other side, you had Nasty 24 and 21, and Snoop as the other standout, who was 28 and 25. Now, if you got a better map out of Purge, instead of him going 14 and 25, this probably goes a little bit differently, and it might go 5, who knows. Speaking of maps where it could have gone 5, we had the Colossus HP that went 250 to 233 in favor of the Vegas, now Riyadh Falcons, right? They used to be the Vegas Falcons. KV dropped 37 and 30 for the L, which is insane. Cell was 32 and 28, Exent 36 and 27. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to be playing the highlights on screen here. As you guys can see, this was just a passion match, right? The Surge. The Falcons were in an absolute bang out in the last few hills, and they just brought it back. I mean, it was a miraculous comeback. They were down. Let's look at the flow chart, right? 119 to 165, 193 to 137, 147 to 226, 175 to 232, 233 to 11, and then we finished 250 233. So it was an insane comeback. Yeah, be sure to check out those highlights because, wow, that was a way to end the series. Celium absolutely firebombed him, and then he said, yeah, we'll go next. Exon went crazy too. He went on a 10 at the end of the game. And that's how I got to 36 and 27. He was like, obviously 26 and 27 before, or 26 and 26 maybe. And yeah, he went on a 10 spree to close out the game. It was insane. So, looking at our second to last series of the weekend, we had a Game 5 in the Dempsey Bowl between the Miami Heretics and Cloud9 New York. Let's check that one out and see all the specifics. So, looking at the series overview, you of course had who else but Metals, the veteran of the Miami Heretics, being their standout and the series MVP with a 1.12 on the series, 93 and 83 in his KD. And he looked phenomenal. On the other side, Afro was the only person to be in the green for C9, and everybody else was like 0.1 below even. So, rough series for everybody but Afro. But, you know, on the Miami Heretic side, it's definitely just a team diff, right? You can see everybody here is positive, and they just looked good. So looking at the map one, speaking of Miami Heretics looking good, they came out to a hot start, 250 to 154 on exposure HP. Absolutely cooking Cloud9 boys. Metals 25 and 22, Rancor 32 and 2017, Jesus Christ, 32 and 17, and then Trakes 31 and 21. So yeah, they just skilled it from here. Mac was the only one shooting back, 27 and 26, and Beans might be going the way of Legend with that 12 and 28 scoreline. Looking at the map 2, well, Beans redeemed himself here at 13-3, and then Vivid was 8-5 to complement him, where they absolutely firebombed Miami Heretics with a 6-3 scoreline. Beans just did it all. He took over. And yeah, the only person on Miami who was even close, well, Trakes and Metals both had 7, so they were close. And Super had 6-6, so really if you get a better game out of Rancor, it's probably a little bit tighter, but Cloud9 just better here. In the Overload map 3 on Den, we of course had a 4-1 in favor of the Miami Heretics behind a 31-20 from Metals, and then of course a 24-19 from Super, the other rookie from last year. Now on the Cloud9 side, you of course had Afro going 26-18, the lone person to do decently on the C9 side in the Overload, but yeah, obviously it wasn't good enough in a 4-1 loss. Now looking at the map 4 Scar HP, of course, Beans and Vivid, I guess the AR duo of this team at this point. Is Vivid SMG or AR at this point? I know Beans AR. Mac being SMG would make sense, and Afro being SMG would make sense. I don't know. This game is weird. It's a rollless game to a degree. Anyways, Vivid and Beans, they went 26-22. They had the same KD, ironically, and they farmed. So that's how the Cloud9 boys were able to dominate the map 4 and push a map 5, where the Miami Heretics were able to just absolutely dominate them behind 9-4 from Super. Super is back to being an S&D shot caller like he was last year. And then Afro was 7-5 on the other side. He tried his very best, but in the end, didn't even matter. Now, looking at our last matchup of the weekend, I actually got this one 100% right, got 6 points. I said Faze Vegas win a 3-2 over the Toronto Koi boys. I felt like Faze, their S&D, would just be better, and I felt like they would win the Overload and force a Game 5. They did not win an Overload. They actually ended up winning a hardpoint, and they won both searches, which I expected them to win both searches, so not surprised there. But winning a hardpoint was a surprise. Now, looking at the match, box score, of course, you know who the MVP was. Simp, the pimp, who never has a limp. My GOAT. He had 1.19. He was absolutely farming 94-79 in terms of kills and deaths. And then Abuza was right there with him, 87-84. And Draza had a great series, 87-85 in his KD. Now on the other side, the only person to go positive was Real, who went slightly positive, 89-87. And Ghosty went -10, so that's interesting. Map 1, Exposure HP. Faze got, honestly, they just got out-rotated towards the end, and Koi, they just did what they needed to. They played better fundies, and they just won how you should win a COD game, if we're being honest, right? Like, they just looked like the better team here. So, on the Koi side, you had Insight 22, excuse me, you had Insight 27-22, Joe 30-28, and Real 28-26. And then on the Faze side, you had Abuza 25-27, Draza 27-29, and Sim 26-25. Then you had 04 28-28. On the map 2, S&D on Den, you had a 6-5 in favor of the Vegas Faze boys. Round 11 went their way. Insight 9-9 for the L. Joe and Real, the SMG duo, both dropped 7 kills. And on the Faze side, you had Simp with 11-5, Draza with 8-8, Booza 6-7, and 04 5-9 for the dub. On the Exposure Overload, this went the way of Toronto Koi. They absolutely just skill diffed him here. I mean, honestly, like, Faze is just not shooting back. Kleenex 28-21, Insight 22-18, Joe 25-22, and Real 24-22. Even though it was close in the end, yeah, I mean, it just felt like Faze, when they rallied, it was amazing, but Koi just had way more dominance in the slaying category throughout the entirety of the map, so it just felt like a foregone conclusion to a large degree. Speaking of foregone conclusions, that's map 4 in a nutshell. Insight 15-30, Joe 15-26. Oh, this is where the -10 came in. Real 23-25, and Kleenex 23-27. And then on Faze, everybody went green. 29-20 out of 04, 24-20 out of Abuza, Sim 26-18, and I'm sorry, Draws 26-18, and Sim 29-18. So absolutely firebombed them. And then on the Scar S&D, you of course had Kleenex going 8-7 for the L, Real going 7-6 for the L. And then on the Faze side, 04 7-6 for the dub, Abuza 9-5, Draza 4-6, and Simp 7-7. So that's how Faze ended their 2025. They ended on a very high note, finishing 2-1 in the standings, beating a very strong Toronto Koi. And yeah, guys, that was about wrap it up for my recap of Week 2. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you missed any of the action, I highlighted every single one of these matches in depth on my channel. Be sure to go to the video section to check those out. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already to the channel, share this video with someone if you think they would enjoy it or they enjoy competitive COD. And if you enjoyed this, maybe you didn't, be sure to come back. I'll be doing something that you'll probably like. I mean, I try to do some different things on this channel. You'll probably like a different format that I've introduced. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Hope you guys have a great morning, noon, or night, like I always say. And once again, this is Chris from Fake Sports News, Axe Rotation. However, flip, you know what it is, interwebs, and I'll be signing off. Peace.